It's been a blast taking a walk down memory lane with all of these Atari 2600 memories over the past few months, and several of you have written in with your own experiences on the console. This week, let's take a look at some more of your favorite Atari games that you've shared. Some of these I've played myself, while others I have not. That's one of my favorite things about doing these videos. Oftentimes I found out about a random game from you that I completely missed out on as a kid, and then I get to experience it for the first time myself. And I always appreciate that, so please feel free to keep those suggestions coming. First up, Frogs and Flies, released by Mattel Electronics in 1982. Thanks to Dave, Alan, and Randy for reminding me about this one. This is one we actually had when I was a little kid, and the thing I remember most about it is that it came in one of these slick, futuristic-looking cartridges instead of the standard Atari cartridge. At the time, I just thought that meant it was, I don't know, special or something. Turns out all of the M-Network games from Mattel had these types of cartridges. Frogs and Flies is a prime example of how you don't need to make a game overly complicated in order to make it good. You play as a frog, and the goal is to catch as many flies as you can with your tongue within a 3-minute time span. The frog with the most points wins. You just hop back and forth between two lily pads, grabbing flies with your tongue until the game ends, and that's all there is to it. You can play 1 or 2 players, although if the second controller goes unused for 10 or 15 seconds, the computer takes over and then you're just playing against the computer. Sometimes the flies change their flight pattern or just sharply change direction. The setting is a nice looking little pond in the middle of a forest with a couple of lily pads, and heck, there's even a day to night transition over the course of a 3-minute game. They could have just made a simple countdown timer, but instead the sun setting is a really nice touch. I didn't realize this until now, but actually my cousin and I had been playing this on easy mode when we were kids. If you flip the difficulty switch to the harder mode, you can make it to where you have much more control over how the frog jumps. The manual boasts full control over the frog, so pushing the joystick at a certain angle might make the frog jump higher in the air or further to the left or the right. This makes the game much more challenging, and you can even fall into the water, which makes a cool little splashing effect. The manual encourages you to utilize this if you're an adult playing against a little kid, and I hadn't really thought about that before. The Atari 2600 featured difficulty switches for each player, and you could even the odds a bit if you're a grown-up playing against a little kid by using the separate difficulty switches, so it's still fun for everybody. That's pretty neat. Also, I never knew this, but on easy mode the frog's tongue just grabs the flies automatically. Whereas if you're using the harder difficulty mode, then you have to time it just right by pressing the button. So what you're telling me is when I was a little kid grabbing all those flies, really it was just on easy mode and the computer was doing all the work for me. Well, that tears it. Childhood ruined, I guess. Anyway, Frogs and Flies is a ridiculously simple concept that made for an addicting and really enjoyable experience. I thought so anyway. When my cousin and I would sit and play Atari games on rainy days as a kid, this one was a constant in our rotation. What did you think? Thanks to Chris for suggesting this one. Cosmic Creeps was developed and released by Telesys in 1982. If you've never heard of Telesys, don't feel bad. They're one of those random companies that ever so briefly came into existence, came out with a handful of games on the Atari 2600 such as Coconuts and Fast Food, and then vanished back into the ether never to be heard from again. Still though, Cosmic Creeps is an interesting little feat of programming and deserves a look. I never had this one growing up, so I'm going into this one cold. The entire game takes place on this single screen, however, there are multiple sequences that you have to navigate through. So the story here is that all of these cosmic kids are being held prisoner on this planet that's slowly destroying itself. It's up to you to rescue the cosmic kids from the evil cosmic creeps by making sure they get to your spaceship safely. So in the first sequence, when the game starts off, you press up on the joystick to send your Orbinaut up from the planet below and out into space. You have to navigate your Orbinaut around the falling space debris as well as around these space skeeters. No, I'm not making that up. The manual calls these Orbinauts and space skeeters. It's very clear about that, so I don't understand what all the confusion is about. Anyway, you navigate your Orbinaut from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen and then take control of this very slick-looking spaceship. Now you're moving the spaceship to the left and right while the cosmic kids will also start to make their way up to the spaceship one by one to be rescued. The kids will be followed by the cosmic creeps, aka these green guys, and you can destroy them by dropping these projectiles from your spaceship. The manual calls these boppers? Orbinauts, boppers, space skeeters. This is Atari 2600 storytelling at its absolute finest. So the Cosmic Creeps will follow along behind the Cosmic Kids, although they won't actually kill the kids unless they get to the top of the screen. Once a kid safely reaches your spaceship at the top of the screen, press up again and another kid will exit the planet and start making his way up toward your ship. Basically, you want to make sure you kill all of the creeps before they reach the top, or they'll take over your spaceship and the game is over. Also, friendly fire is on here, so it's possible to drop a bopper and accidentally just kill the Cosmic Kids that you're supposed to be rescuing. And to make matters worse, remember I told you that the planet is slowly dying? You've got a time limit here, and you'll notice that the planet is slowly descending toward the bottom of the screen and out of view. Once it disappears, the game is over. The manual states you win the game if you have at least 5,000 points before the planet is destroyed, and you do get extra points for each kid you rescue. Man, that's kind of morbid though. There's no set amount of kids, it's just rescue as many as you can before the whole dang planet explodes. There are no difficulty or game select modifiers in this one, so what you see here is what you get. I do have to say, it's fairly impressive to see in action. The characters are all colorful and detailed. Your Orbinaut even kind of looks like Roger Wilco from Space Quest. The spaceship is really cool looking, and there's even a bit of detail with this crack splitting apart the planet. The space skeeters have a little bit of animation to them, as do the boppers that you drop down onto the Cosmic Creeps. Also, how complicated was this to program to where you have to control the character, move him all the way to the top of the screen, and then take control of a spaceship? That seems trivial now, but this was 1982 for crying out loud. All in all, this is a pretty good game. Here's another one I've never played before. Several of you wrote in and mentioned Krull over the past few months. Based on the major motion picture of the same name, Krull for Atari 2600 is an ambitious title developed and released by Atari in 1983. So there's a lot going on here, including 4 different game modes. I'll confess, I haven't seen the film, but the gist here is that you're trying to rescue a princess from some evil dudes. The manual goes on and on about a mystical prophecy. Okay, here's the TLDR instructions on how to play Krull on Atari 2600. So pay attention, because we're only going to do this once. You start off outside the castle walking along with the princess when all of a sudden you're ambushed and you have to try to stop all of these bad guys with swords and lasers. Eventually, no matter what you do, the princess gets kidnapped and now you're riding on horseback to the lair of the spider. Try to grab as many extra guys and glaive weapons along the way, and now you're in the Widow of the Web. Make your way through the web to the cocoon at the top of the screen, which reveals the secret path to the hidden fortress where the princess is being held captive. Then make your way to that spot on the screen, but you gotta hurry because the path changes whenever the sun goes down, and then you'll have to go all the way back to the cocoon and start over again. Are you with me so far? Once you exit the spider's lair through the secret path, it's back to riding horses and snatching up glaives until the Transformers logo peeks at you from just over the horizon, and now you're in the final battle to rescue the princess from the evil gingerbread man. It turns into a game of Breakout here where you have to throw your glaive and destroy the wall around the princess. This is harder than it looks though, because the gingerbread man, okay, he's supposed to be called the Beast, he can catch your glaive, and if you run out of glaives, you're just kinda screwed. Once you make a big enough hole in the wall, throw your glaive through it so the princess will come out and give you a special fireball that you can use to defeat the Beast. Then the game loops around back to the beginning and you start the whole process over again with increased difficulty. Overall, this game isn't bad, especially for a movie tie-in. However, I wasn't crazy about the spiderweb level. It took a lot of practice to get the hang of this. You're supposed to jump over the moving parts of the web, and if it catches you, you're just kinda stuck. Sometimes you can move in the opposite direction and sorta work yourself loose. Whatever you do, don't get stuck at the bottom, or you'll just be stuck there until the spider eventually gets all mad and kills you. Also, once the difficulty ramps up, this level becomes ridiculous. Even on the second round, the sun goes around so fast that I just couldn't get to the secret passage in time before it reset, and you had to go back to the cocoon again. I'm sure with a little more practice I could have gotten better at it, but it was just downright annoying. Also, on the beginning screen, there's nothing you can do to stop the soldiers from eventually kidnapping the princess, so other than racking up a high score, there's no incentive not to just walk over to the side of the screen and wait for the inevitable. Overall, this is an impressive game given you almost never see this many different game modes in a single Atari 2600 cartridge. The systems going on in the background, like the day-night cycle in the spider's lair, must have been an ordeal to program. The graphics are also about as good as you could ask for, with the detailed and colorful characters. The sound effects are really well done too, such as some of the battle effects or the horse clomping sounds. But man, that spider's lair is kind of a deal breaker for me. Thanks to Eric, Jimmy, Sam, and Never Knowing for suggesting this one, Escape from the Mind Master. Developed by Dennis Caswell and released in 1982. This was released for the Starpath Supercharger, a special add-on for the Atari 2600 that expanded the console's RAM significantly and allowed for larger games stored on these special cassettes. That's right, at one point the Atari 2600 would have had games that you load from a cassette player. The story here is that you've been kidnapped by the Mind Master and wake up in this giant maze full of twisting passages and puzzles. The whole thing kinda sounds like something out of an episode of Star Trek, the original series. The Mind Master is a brilliant but evil alien who wants to study your puny earthling brain to see if you can handle all of the cunning puzzles he throws at you, and your mission is, well, to escape. Escape from the Mind Master is incredible in that the game takes place in a first-person 3D environment. You move around in this environment looking for puzzle pieces that you have to place in their correct positions throughout the maze. It's pretty straightforward. For example, if you find a square item, pick it up by pressing the button and then put it in the square hole located elsewhere in the maze. Keep in mind though that you can only pick up one piece of the puzzle at a time. Do this for all of the puzzle pieces and then you'll be able to go through the level's exit door. But there's evil robots and giant floating squares of death that you have to contend with, as is typically the case. There's a rhythmic beeping sound that gets faster or slower depending on how close you are to the killer robot. This adds to the tension as you're trying to sneak through the hallways, although it can be a bit confusing. The beeping will pick up if the robot is close to you, but that could just mean he's on the other side of the wall and not necessarily standing right next to you or anywhere close where he could actually kill you. The obvious comparison here would be Tunnel Runner, which runs on the stock Atari 2600 console, and some of you mentioned that I should have included Escape from the Mind Master in the Atari 2600 Limit Busters series instead of Tunnel Runner. The main reason I included Tunnel Runner over this was that Tunnel Runner ran on the stock console while Mind Master requires the Supercharger add-on. I wanted that series to focus on stock Atari VCS games, but it's interesting to compare the two titles because it really shows you how much the Starpath Supercharger extended the 2600's gameplay capabilities. As Never Knowing writes in, you've got smoother 3D graphics, the map is on the screen at all times, and it shows the direction you're facing in case you get disoriented. The robot enemy actually scales in and out of view as well as it can turn its back to you, and you've also got the added element of puzzle solving with the objects. They also put in these minigames. Occasionally you'll find a spot on the wall that triggers a minigame where you have to dodge objects, or there might be a memory game. These are just thrown in for fun and some bonus points. You know, to test your mind. This would have just totally blown my mind if I had a chance to play this back in the early 80s. Imagine going from Space Invaders to this? It's still cool to pick this up and play today as well. Unfortunately, going out and buying a Starpath Supercharger as well as the games for it might set you back a bit. But it's still worth checking out any way possible just to get an idea of what the Atari 2600 was capable of in the right hands. Hey, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be streaming from time to time over on the Twitch. I'll still be uploading regular episodes here on the main channel, but from time to time when I'm recording footage for upcoming episodes, I'll do it over on Twitch. You can find me at twitch.tv/Friday Night Arcade. I probably won't have a set schedule, but I'll post on Twitter when I'm about to go live each week, so keep an eye on that. I'll stream on Twitch when I'm recording footage or if I'm just playing random stuff that I enjoy, and I'll upload the bestest bits over on my side channel on YouTube at Friday Night Arcade Plays. As always, thank you for watching, and hope to see you soon over at twitch.tv/Friday Night Arcade. Well, what did you think? Were any of these games in your rotation of Atari games as a kid? What are some other Atari games you'd like me to take a look at in an upcoming episode? I do this sort of thing all the time here. If you didn't see your favorite Atari game in this episode, I've done a couple dozen Atari-centric episodes up to this point, including more lists as well as some standalone episodes, so you may want to check out this playlist to see if I've already covered your favorite game in a past episode. And you can subscribe for new videos each week. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.